Hi there, dance studio owners, and welcome to the Transform My Dance Studio podcast. My name is Shannon Westbeer, and I am the Inner Circle Program Manager here at the Dance Studio Owners Association. For the next 6 weeks, we couldn't be more excited to be introducing a brand new host here on the podcast. Leese Thistle is an extraordinary studio owner and Inner Circle member who will be leading from behind the microphone for a 6-part podcast series, Work Less, Make More. Annie is the CEO and Artistic Director of Performing Arts Academy of Marin, also known as PAM, in Mill Valley, California. Annie established PAM in the summer of 2009, facilitating its growth with the help of dedicated faculty and staff from humble beginnings in a church hall to a thriving community with state-of-the-art facilities and premier training in dance and the performing arts. In this limited series, Annie will be your guide to achieving more freedom and balance in your studio life as she walks you through her 6 secrets to a profitable 20-hour work week. If you're looking for resource and support to grow the dance studio of your dreams, make sure to join us in the Dance Studio Owners Association. It's completely free and filled with industry-leading tools that will empower you to grow your studio and reclaim your life. Join us today at dsoa.com/join. We hope you enjoy Work Less, Make More with Leese Thistle.
Hi, and welcome to DSOA's Transform My Dance Studio podcast. You are listening to episode 2 of Work Less, Make More, 6 Secrets to a Profitable 20-Hour Work Week, with me, Leese Thistle. I am the owner of the Performing Arts Academy of Marin, PAM for short, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we are in our 14th season. Now, why I joined the DSOA Inner Circle about 3 years ago or so is the reasons I talked about in the first episode. Super stressed, very overwhelmed, overworked, had to do it all myself mentality, even though at that point I already had a team in place and already had $1 million studio. But what I did not know is, how do I find freedom? Currently, not only am I working towards that freedom and have so much more clarity in my quality of life and how my time is spent, but as icing on the cake, I just got my P&Ls back year to date for this year, and we've already surpassed last year and are on track for our best year ever in our history. So I'm now also reaping the benefits of all the financial rewards that come with that hard work, working on myself and working on my business. And for you, I'm so thrilled for all of the triumphs that you have had, but just know that the struggle, the daily struggle, or I won't say daily struggle, let's not make every day a struggle. I'll say any adversity that comes up or any short-term pain that you feel, keep working on the things that you care about and the things that you know you work, because they will pay off and you will see that light at the end of the tunnel. It is there, I promise. Now, last episode, we spoke about the first secret, which is defining our values. And we talked about what matters to us, what's really important. What are the things that are currently holding us back from reaching our full potential? You have to start with you in order to fix anything in your business or quality of life. So start with you, do that inventory. And speaking of inventory, we are going to get to your work week inventory very shortly. That being said, how can we get what we want if we haven't defined it? How can we reach greater heights by doing the same thing that we've always done? In July of 2020, at an Inner Circle retreat, we had the pleasure of having a wonderful guest. His name is Michael Burnoff, with whom I've done additional programs on high-level communication since the time that I heard him talk. He said something really interesting, which was not meant to be comforting. However, it was to me at the time, and I'll explain why. So he said, "Congratulations, you can sit here during the lockdown for the rest of the year. We were in July. He said, through the end of the year, and you will come back to a business that you can run exactly the way that you always have and will have the same success that you've always had. And this was so comforting because I always had this notion that if I took my eye away or took something off my plate or wasn't fully invested for every hour of every day into my studio, that somehow it was going to crumble to the ground, disappear, and it was not going to exist anymore. This was a belief that I held for a long time, and one that Clint said, okay, Annie, yes, if you didn't have systems in place, if you didn't have the, successful tenure that's happening, sure. But he said, you have people in place and systems in place to be successful. You can do this, you can step away. And he was right. And Michael Burnoff was right in terms of the fact that, yes, you can do this, but he did not mean that to be comforting, because that leads to stagnation. His purpose was that if you want change, if you want more, if you want better than your average, you have to change something in order to get different results. And so that's what we're going to work on today. So what I'd like for you to do is take inventory of your work week. Now, the way that you do this is you're going to write down a list of all the things that you do in your work week or month or year, all of the things that are your responsibility. If you'd like to do this exercise along with me, I encourage you to pause this right now, sit down, and write out that full list. Okay, so by now you have your full list, or you're going to go and work on it at some other time convenient to you. So what you're going to do next is put a heart next to the things that make your heart sing. These are the things you love to do, your zone of genius, the work that you are excited to get up in the morning and do each day and do happily and do well. These are the things that you want to keep currently. After you find out what you want to keep, the rest of it are things that you are going to want to delegate. Or if there are things that you look at and go, oh, well, that's not really necessary, you can just cross it off your list and toss it in the garbage, not the whole list, just the crossed off thing, and know that nobody really should be doing that. And we can move on from those things with nothing else said about that. Now, before we move on to the delegation, I want you to look very, very carefully at the things that you love, that list of hearts that you have. I'll tell you this because it's something that I've found within myself too, is that sometimes the things we love are simply just things we're holding on to. And I don't mean in totality. I can sometimes just mean in part. So for example, I, in the past, would have had a heart around or next to private lessons. I started out the studio having wonderful, wonderful rec programs and eventually built an exciting, more advanced program, which fed me in a different way. Those different levels, different age groups all serve different purposes and, bring joy in a myriad of ways. Now, for me, it was very exciting to finally have kids that were really excited about training on a regular basis and wanted to be at the studio frequently. So needless to say, that excitement gave way into excess of me going, okay, yes, let's add private lessons. Let's add solos. I'll be here working with you every weekend to get those pieces ready and to spend that individual time with you. And I have to say, it was very well loved individual time. Now, that private lesson revenue stream is an important one, and it's not one that I wanted to give up, but it was one that I could start to give away when I looked at my time. A big question I want you to evaluate is quality over quantity. And that topic is going to come up a lot during this particular episode, is how can we get quality time doing the things that we love in a quantity that makes sense for a 20-hour work week or whatever amount of hours it is that you want to work. So doing 12 to 20 hours of private lessons every weekend, not really feasible. I gave those hours to teachers that needed them and wanted them, and then gave the rest away to outsourcing with guest artists and other things, which is a fantastic way to expand your repertoire and not have to worry too much about the bottom line in terms of solos, at least, because what you do, and some people will say, but how do I afford that guest artist? The guest artists come to your studio and you charge a studio fee on top of that to the parents. And then you walk away with a little bit of money and the guest artist walks away with what they need as well. And then you can pass the cleaning off to your staff. Really easy. My solution for my little heart next to my private lesson love was, okay, well, how do I still touch all the kids? And what I came up with was having them come in for an hour or 2 hours or however amount of time is necessary during company time or at an additional time, which would be at an additional nominal fee per child, for them to come in and for me to look at the solos and see them and give them feedback. And also then from that point, see if there's a child or two who possibly needs 30 minutes of time with me, some meticulous time with me or another teacher, which is a really efficient way for all of the kids to feel cared for me to feel like I'm a part of the process and actually to know that I am an important part of the process. And for me to also gain back many, many hours while employing excellent teachers and having really happy kids with great pieces as well. Sometimes letting go allows us to come back to things. That goes for teaching as well. So for me, going from teaching a Wall Street number of hours per week on top of the admin, I was able to completely stop teaching in 2020 because I had to give those hours to my teachers. I wanted to keep them employed. We didn't have the numbers to have the number of classes that we normally did. And it was a very easy way for me to give up that time that I needed to and work on the business and work on myself. And from that time away, I was able to see, okay, yes, I don't want, 40, 50, 60, 70 teaching hours a week. I think I'm good with 4 to 6 hours a week, plus any rehearsals that I need to run for the things that I love to do. So I was able to then create a schedule for myself, teaching what I love, which, by the way, I created a class for myself. It's called Tech. I love teaching technique. I love teaching jazz and lyrical, and I love across the floor. So I do pliés, tendus, and dégagés, and then do across the floor. And so I have an hour with each age group of company a week instead of having multiple classes of ballet and lyrical and jazz and whatever else, that I have plenty of other wonderful teachers that can teach it. Now I still get that great, wonderful time with my students, quality over quantity there too. So I've really gone from saying, ooh, I love this, heart this, heart that, to honing in on what it is that I really, really love to do. And this has taken several years of doing this process, and something that you can start to really discover about yourself is especially those creative souls who are great at a lot of things and great in envisioning new things, is what are those couple of things, those handful of things that really matter to you and that you can become really focused on and then give the rest away. For me, what it's boiled down to essentially is I love my leadership. I love planning and programming, and I love mentoring. And then the side piece of that, my little dessert, is producing the couple of shows that I produce a year, which is a huge love of mine. I love creating those shows and the flow and seeing how happy all of the kids are and all of the families. So that's something that I currently have a big heart next to as well. So after you've taken a good hard look at those items, you may have created subcategories of the things that you love. So perhaps loving private lessons is now okay, I can give actually the majority of private lessons away, but I can let's build in an extra hour or two per session, per quarter, whatever it is, for you to see those and come in as this, special guest to give them feedback, which also is really fun and a fun thing for the kids to look forward to. That's just one example. Not all of us are private lesson hoarders like I was, but you can apply that to whatever situation you need to apply it to. Now, back to those items without a heart. Those are the ones that we want to work on eliminating from your plate in time. Remember, it takes time. But once you free yourself up from the excessive day-to-day, then you can really start to change your life. The other thing is that you'll be able to more clearly see the direction that you want to take your studio in and be able to make those really meaningful changes and updates to your studio that you couldn't see if you were on that hamster wheel, because you can't see it. You have to keep moving in front of you. So once you give those tasks away, you can look at the bigger picture and have time to dream and time to plan and time to lead, which is what we do as CEOs. So get out of those trenches, right? Okay, to delegation. What can you offload now? For the things you want to offload down the road, set a timeline for those to keep yourself on track. For me, I like to put it in my calendar or, whatever kind of, if it's an Asana board or somewhere, for vision planning, this is what needs to happen. These are the things, this is when I need to reevaluate my love list or whatever it is, your task list. Make sure you build that into your schedule. Now, the questions that you can ask about the things that you need to delegate now, there's two of them. It's what can you give to your current team and do you need to hire somebody to do those things? The hiring portion is the one that everybody kind of goes eek for. But again, smart hiring is so important, and you are not going to get to the places you want to go if you and your whole team are bogged down. So if that extra assistance, that extra hire is going to free people up to make your company more money, then I very much encourage you to do that after you've calculated the costs. And I would encourage you to take calculated, intelligent risks, because that is the way that you lead to a more expanded program and a more expanded you. So your list of things that are necessary but icky to you, likely there's someone out there who really loves that. So again, for me, 5, 6, 7, 8 is about the numbers that I like. I can do them. I can certainly do the numbers. I know all about them, but that's not my love. So let's find somebody who loves numbers other than 5, 6, 7, 8, and they can help you out. Now, if you're offloading to your current staff, I highly recommend you take them through the exercise that I just took you through with a couple of modifications, because we don't want to put them in a position of delegating everything off of their plate. Of course, delegation for your upper level positions is an important skill, but for this exercise, I want them to think about a couple of things. So you're going to ask them, what are the things you really love about your job? Pull those things out and categorize them. Then what are the essential parts of your job? Some of them will have crossover with what they love, but add to that list and categorize it. And then I ask, in a perfect world, what would you like to get rid of? And I ask them that because it's really good information to know what your employees enjoy and what is a little less joyful. Because the things that they are good at, just like the things that you are good at, are not necessarily your most loved thing. This is essential to productivity and happiness. So they want to feel valued. They want to feel heard. And what you really need to do is help them understand that you value and you understand what they bring to the table. You love that they love what they do, and that there are things within the business that need to happen regardless of how we feel about them. And this is something that Clint mentioned at Dance Studio Domination in New York back in, I think it was 2019, I want to say. And that is this kind of 90-10 rule when it comes to happiness, job satisfaction, is that if you are in a position where 90% of what you do is enjoyable and 10% is the stuff that you have to do, you are in a fantastic situation. And so I always make that my goal with my employees is, hey, where are you at? What percentage are we at? How can we get to more of that 90-10? Or what it is sometimes it's, hey, this stuff needs to happen. I understand it's not what you love to do. It's so essential to what we do. So what we're going to do is continue to work on that. You continue to have it on your plate. And if it's truly a large percentage of what they do, I would work on redistributing responsibilities to people who really love what they do. Because there's probably, if you have a large enough team, there might be somebody who would be better suited and enjoy it more. Or again, there's a really good opportunity if it's a larger job to hire another person on your team, or to create a smaller part-time position for a contracted position that will be less of a financial burden, but will buy back a lot of time and satisfaction for everyone involved. So once people understand that you really care about them and that you're looking at it, and that, perhaps there are things that they don't like to do, but it's essential, they will really be able to get on board with you. They will also be more apt to help you out and take on those bigger responsibilities. So my employees are all very, very focused on what they're doing. They also know that their positions in terms of what they're doing has been stuff that they've taken off of my plate, which is huge. And it allows me to do more for them and more for the studio, and they understand that. So if I come to them with something, here's something that we are going to add to your responsibility list, or we're going to add this here and move this around here and there, they understand that and they're happy to do it. When you're adding that new task to their list, so something that you're wanting to delegate from yourself to them, make sure that you have a clear training process in place, checks and balances, and also a system of checking in with them a lot in the beginning, making sure that there's progress, being there for them, and then slowly letting it become their responsibility, which again, buys you a ton of time. As you do this more, again, your role will refine, and more of your day-to-day will go to your staff. There is certainly a push and a pull there. I, have had times where I've looked at something, given it away, looked at it, and it's not where it was when I originally had it, which means I need to look at how I communicated the process to them, and then also how they're held accountable for it. So there is definitely a consistent idea of leading, training, retraining, making sure that there's things in place to check the progress on things, which again, that's where all of your systems, which I'm not going to go into here, but the systems become really important. Things like Asana and other forms of communication and project management, so that you can see, or that an operations manager or someone in charge of that aspect can very easily see the progress on. Now, fast forward to freedom. You have empowered your team to function by giving them confidence and also letting them know you are alert and aware and on top of that. You can be removed, but not absentee. So the way that I remove myself in certain aspects is making sure that the meetings are in place and the touch points are in place to make sure that everything is going the way that it should. I'm not going to get into my org chart here, but I do have a team of about 7 or 8 admin at any given time, plus 18 to 25 teachers. And that depends on whether we're in the studio school year or during the summer. Within my admin team, I have meetings set up, and the meetings are team meetings as well as individual meetings. Now, when I first started this meeting structure, I was meeting with my team far too often. I had 2 to 3 hour-long meetings with the whole team, and then 2 30-minute meetings per week with each one of my team members. From that overzealous place of managing, I've stepped it back, and we've gotten very efficient with our meeting plans. So this is having a clear idea of what we're coming in, a clear agenda, and a clear plan of who is in charge of that. So my administrative manager knows that he's in charge of the meeting agenda. My staff also know that if they have something that they need and want to bring up in the meeting, they're allowed to add that to our Asana meeting board as well. So again, communication is key. The other thing I'll say in terms of my employees and them being able to take on more tasks is their ability to understand the importance of what we're doing here. Part of what I do as CEO and what we all do is rally the troops, create a vision that everyone can get behind. So not only are we talking about you need to do this, you need to do that, we're also talking about on the horizon, we see this. When I hear a teacher, this happened the other day when I was in a retraining, as I spoke of, sometimes we take steps back. I am retraining currently on the onboarding process because we had some interesting glitches come up at the start of this year. So we are taking a step back and re-looking at it. So this was literally yesterday. I was sitting and they were talking about how excited the kids are to get their pumpkin bash t-shirts. Now, why are they so excited? This is our first year doing it, but it's because it's just this fun event, basically what it is. They're excited to get it because we've created a situation and an environment where that community aspect and that giving back is so important. And this is also supported by our students. We also talked about how I asked them point blank, I said, hey, we have one program in particular that we struggle with retention, and we have another that is rock star at retention. And I said, what are those two things? There was a little bit of silence. And then one teacher chimed in. She said, well, BAPAC, the company programs high retention, rec programs lower retention. And I said, yes, exactly why. Why is that? And they were quiet again. And I said, sense of family. It's a sense of community. And that is something that the company kids have because they're here day in and day out. And how do we create that for the kids that are in our halls once a week? And then another person said, well, no, I mean, they said they're going to be back, but they're just going to go do soccer. And I said, well, that's okay, but they're choosing soccer. They're not choosing us. They were already under our roof. They should be choosing us. How and why will somebody choose us? Because they feel like they want to stay and be a part of something. And that was light bulbs going off for them. But again, it's those moments for me to reinstill that into my team that allow me to ride off into the sunset and at certain times and know that these things are happening. But again, I have to be present in those quality aspects, those planned times when I'm going to spend with them. It was yesterday, like I said, Thursday, vision planning day. Guess what happened yesterday? It was retrain my staff day because that's when it needed to happen. And they knew that I was dedicating that time to them because it needed to happen. So for you, what can you do with that? Inspire your team in those quality times that you can, and you don't need to do it and hold their hand through the process. Meet with them, have the systems in place, and begin to let go of the things that are keeping you bogged down and don't allow you to see the bigger picture for your studio or for your life. Now, what I want you to remember also is that doing the same thing and expecting different results does not work. You cannot expect to build the life that you want and not make any changes in your current situation. Start off small. Start delegating a couple of things. See how that feels to have the freedom to just forward that email to somebody else. Start there. Forward an email. Don't answer it. Let somebody else take care of it. If you're in charge of programming, create the program and then, the schedule, and then give it to somebody else and let them proofread it and make sure it's all okay. So you can take baby steps. It's totally fine. So now's the time to start. Now's the time for you to start freeing up your schedule. Your business and everyone around you will benefit tremendously from what it is that you are going to give them in the long run when you have that quality over quantity time. So next week, what we're going to talk about is how you achieve that vision further. So what are we going to do more now that we've started to delegate? What I can tell you what I did specifically, and I'll give you some steps, tips, and tricks to keep working towards that 20-hour work week, again, while keeping your studio profitable. having your best year yet to come. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Empire Formula on the Transform My Dance Studio podcast. If you are ready to take your studio to the next level, make sure to join us for free inside the Dance Studio Owners Association, where we have everything you need to grow your studio and reclaim your life. Join us today at dsoa.com/join. If you loved this episode, we encourage you to rate and review the podcast. These simple things allow us to continue bringing you world-class hosts and guests every Monday right here on the Transform My Dance Studio podcast.